Okay, good evening, everyone. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. In the event of an emergency, please note the exits throughout the room. Before we do the roll tonight, for the record, Steve Schultes and Lauren Quigley will be voting members of the board. Can we do the roll?
Mrs. Quigley?
Here.
Mr. Schultes?
Here.
Mr. Stoll?
Here.
Mr. Crispell?
Here.
And Chairman Lee?
Here, thank you. First item is the approval of the minutes from our September meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Minutes approved. Okay, first up is the public hearing for Stuart.
So, back again this month, for those of you who don't know me, I know Max, we've met previously, but Mike Viteri, surveyor. So, with regards to, this is a two-lot subdivision located at 711 Neighborhood Road. Just to go through, the review and so on, try to make this quick. So, the escrow agreement you have, correct? They came in, they signed, they paid. So that knocks out number one. The scale of the digital version, I can send along a different scale PDF. That's no problem. Graphic scale and topography. I'm assuming that this is part of 161.24. Yeah. Okay, so this has really never been brought up in the past with regards to any other applications in the previous few months, although I did revise this map to show the scale bar and a 1 foot equals 800 foot, a 1 inch equals 800 foot raster image for the location. Proposed monuments, that's not something that is actually required. So with regards to final plat, this is another thing that has never been brought up before. I see this on both of my reviews. Final plat, location of all proposed monuments should be shown clearly. I mean, is that what we're talking about in terms of boundary corners and so on? So basically what happens there is the minimum standards are set forth by New York State doesn't even require me to set any corners. So with that being said, that's something that is more or less a state education department type issue that we generally, unless required by the board, we don't mark on there. Because what ends up happening is if we get into the field and something is not stakeable, then it's on a filed plat. What we do is we stake it and create new legal descriptions. And if something is set 2 foot from a corner, it is denoted in the legal description. So generally speaking, we do not show location of proposed monuments. So with that being said, that's one short item that we cover. Let's see if I grab my approval. So we changed that. This is another item. So this is obviously I hereby grant my approval to this plat, that actual statement. I added that on here somewhere, where I do not know. It was on this, maybe not on this copy, but either way, that has been added right here. I hereby grant my approval to this plat. That is a town law, so obviously stated here in the notes, we added that. So far we've added the scale bar, the 1 inch equals 800 raster, and the I hereby grant my approval to this plat. Those are all items that were not brought up previously and are all items that were never really required prior with the town of Ulster. So those items have now been brought up, those items have been addressed. Moving forward, the location and the means of the water supply and sewer, that's basically cut and dry. We have water and sewer running both on Neighborhood and Country Lane, showing the water and sewer coming in off of Neighborhood Road. The existing home lot is obviously served by a sewer easement as per my plan, along with a well. There is a well serving the existing home lot. There is no municipal water heading into the home. So with that being said, this is actually going to be considered, let me just highlight this here. I know there was a question as to how this was going to appear, but this is the new lot here, while the existing home lot will be accessed by a flag. It will essentially be a flag lot, which will look like this. I know I highlighted this last month, and please excuse my highlighting abilities. but this is what our existing home lot, this being the existing home. So new lot here, sewer easement running through here. Keep in mind, the buyer of this or whomever may decide that they want to run the sewer into the home over here. Is that possible? Absolutely. Right now, the existing homeowner does not intend to do that. So we are showing a 15-foot wide sewer line easement running through the parcel, although this will be considered one parcel. This is not X and X, two different parcels. This is one singular parcel. Moving forward from there, on the back of this here.
Excuse me, Mike?
Yeah.
I don't know if in saying that you clarified where you're coming in with the water for the new lot.
The new lot, yeah, so we have two water valves. You have a water valve here and a water valve here on the road, so the water will come. Obviously, water line running between valves will come in off of neighborhood. Sewer, we have a sewer manhole, and a sewer manhole. The sewer will come off of the main in here through a lateral.
And you said the existing home as well?
The existing home has a well and is served by this 15-foot wide sewer line easement, which has a sewer line running.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Let me just take this off here because this was printed double-sided.
Is there any reason we can't, did you show sort of that on the plan?
What's that?
The availability of water for the new lot and the
Yeah,
well?
yep, actually, that was added just here. This may not have been sent to the town so far at this point in time, but we have a proposed water line from the proposed house to the proposed main, and then sewer here, both on neighborhood road. If the town should decide that it is more applicable to come from Country Lane, then we can move that there. But at this point in time, there is multiple points of access to both sewer and water for the new lot.
Okay.
So the only other thing that really came up in this review was that it showed wetlands, although there is no wetlands. So that was something that you had mentioned in your review, and that is something that I have noticed myself. Not sure why that shows that, but there are no wetlands shown here. So that is basically covering all the items that had been brought up. Oh, the other item, one last item was, so essentially, both of my submittals tonight have required, topography. This is for all, we're right around the corner here, but for everybody that knows this, this is completely flat here. There's one contour traveling through this whole area here. It is a 200-foot contour, but the lot we are proposing and the existing lot, I mean, they have at a max 10 foot in different, in terms of elevation, so.
So we typically will just address any requirement of the code that is not met.
Okay.
Typically, there is a general waiver authority of any submission item under the subdivision regulations. I assume that is in the code as well here.
Yeah, so we don't typically require topography for a subdivision of this magnitude.
Okay. So, I mean, typically, would you waive that requirement, or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But generally speaking, just so, like, to get on the same page, generally that doesn't even come up in these type of situations. So just knowing moving forward with further applications, I just, we'd like to confirm that these items are now going to be items that are gonna be required. For example, raster to scale bar, contours on all subdivisions. Because otherwise it kind of creates a situation where, as a design professional, it's hard to quote a job if we don't know exactly what is going to be required as per each item.
So Mike, I understand your position. We've had some turnover in the planning department over the last 12 months. As you know, this is, Max is basically our third planner in the past year. So just some leeway to the
Understood. I had no problem with that. It's just that, I did go in and revise as much as I could today to meet these requirements per both of my submittal, reviews. So that's basically the gist of it. Otherwise, this is cut and dry. So that's the submittal.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Anything further? Okay, so before we open the public hearing, we have a resolution to vote on for seeker, for lead agency. So we'll start with that, then we'll open the public hearing and then go from there. So whereas the applicant, Viteri Land Surveying, is seeking minor subdivision approval in accordance with section 161-10 and of the Town of Ulster Code to subdivide the subject 1.793 acre property into 2 lots as follows. Proposed lot number 1 with an area of 1.256 acres, which will encompass the western portion of the site and contain an existing single-family home with a driveway providing access from Neighborhood Road, and proposed lot number 2 with an area of .537 acres that will encompass the remaining lands gaining access from Country Lane. Whereas pursuant to Chapter 161 of the Town Code, the minor subdivision is subject to review and approval by the Town of Ulster Planning Board, and whereas the application materials in support of the proposed actions include cover letter prepared by,
That's, yeah.
was that a,
Forget that first one. I
okay,
should have deleted that.
okay. Whereas escrow agreement by Viteri Land Surveying signed by Thomas Stewart dated August 1st, 2025. Application of subdivision lot line revision signed by Thomas Stewart dated August 1st, 2025. Project narrative by Michael C. Viteri, PLS, dated July 31st, 2025. Short environmental assessment form prepared by Michael Viteri, PLS, dated July 31st, 2025. Map of subdivision prepared by Viteri Land Surveying, dated June 2nd, 2025. Whereas on October 14th, the Town of Ulster Planning Board, identifying no other involved agencies for action, classified the action as unlisted pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review, commenced uncoordinated review, adopted a Part 2 short environmental assessment form.
Before you move any further, so there was also the question of number 14 being unanswered in the EAF, which was a very simple question that doesn't really impact anything. But Max, there's a copy for you, and Stacy, here's a copy for you. So this is a revised short form EAF Part 1 for this. That was just missing question number 14 or 16.
Yeah, I apologize. Something went wrong with that resolution.
Okay.
Let me see if I can bring it up.
Looks like the
It seems like something got saved
copied.
over.
Yeah.
It's the same as the regular resolution, which it should not be.
So I think it's there, pick up there. Everybody assumes lead agency, no other involved agencies. Neg deck.
Yeah, so if you skip those 2 whereases,
Okay.
you're absolutely right.
Okay.
And pick up on now therefore be
Got
resolved.
it. Now therefore be it resolved, the planning board hereby assumes lead agency status of the uncoordinated review of the above described unlisted actions. Further be it resolved, the planning board has identified no other involved agencies associated with the action, and further be it resolved, the planning board adopts a Part 2 short environmental assessment form identifying no moderate or large impacts as likely to occur as a result of the action. Further be it resolved, the planning board adopts a negative declaration of environmental significance, determining the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse impacts and that the environmental impact statement shall not be prepared. Further be it resolved, has determined that they have, planning has determined that they have complied fully with the procedural requirements of Part 617 of the State Environmental Quality Review Law. Do we have a motion to pass the resolution as read?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, at this point, we can open the public hearing. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? At this point, the public hearing is open for the Stewart minor subdivision. If there's anyone here that would like to make a comment, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so this is good?
Yeah, you just need those dates on the other one.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
got it.
Just if you take out that first.
Yep.
bullet.
Okay, all right, so now we have a resolution to vote on for approval. Whereas the applicant Viteri Land Surveying, PLLC is seeking minor subdivision approval in accordance with section 161-10 and the Town of Ulster Code to subdivide subject 1.793 acre property into two lots as follows. Proposed lot number 1 with an area of 1.256 acres, which will encompass the western portions of the site and contain an existing single-family home with a driveway providing access from Neighborhood Road, and proposed lot number 2 with an area of .537 acres that will encompass the remaining lands, gaining access from Country Lane. And whereas pursuant to Chapter 161 of the Town Code, the minor subdivisions is a subject to review and approval by the Town of Ulster Planning Board. And whereas the application materials in support of the proposed action includes escrow agreement by Viteri Land Surveying signed by Thomas Stewart dated August 1st, 2025, application for subdivision lot line revision signed by Thomas Stewart dated August 1st, 2025, project narrative by Michael C. Viteri, PLS, dated July 31st, 2025, short environmental assessment form prepared by Michael Viteri, PLS, dated July 31st, 2025. Map of subdivision prepared by Viteri Land Surveying, dated June 2nd, 2025. Whereas on October 14th, the Town of Ulster Planning Board, identifying no other involved agencies for the action, classified the action of an unlisted pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or review, commenced uncoordinated review, adopted a Part 2 environmental assessment form indicating that the project would not result in any moderate or large impacts, and subsequently adopted a negative declaration of environmental significance. And whereas the Town of Ulster Planning Board held the required public hearing on October 14th and thereafter closed the public hearing. Now therefore be it resolved, the Planning Board has determined that they have complied fully with the procedural requirements of Part 617 of the State Environmental Quality Review, and further be it resolved, the Town of Ulster Planning Board hereby grants minor subdivision approval as described above, subject to conditions, limitations, and restrictions set forth below. 1. Satisfaction of the submission comments 1 and 2, and subdivision plat comments 1 through 3 of the review memo by Max Stosh, AICP, dated October 12th, 2025. Approval of the easement documents by the town attorney, and 3. Final plat and deeds may be filed with the office of the county clerk after signed by the chairman of the planning board. 4. No changes, erasures, modifications, or revisions shall be made to any plat after approval of the planning board and signature by the planning board chairman. 5. The final plat must be filed with the office of the county clerk within 62 days of the date final plat is approved by the planning board. And 6. All fees, including consultant fees, shall be paid. Do we have a motion to pass the resolution as read?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Resolution carries.
I'll get the planning board secretary revised resolutions that reflect the changes from tonight.
Okay, great. Okay, next up is Zena. How you doing?
Good evening, Alec Glad from the law firm of Cuddy and Fitter on behalf of the applicant. So we were last in front of the board on May 13th. Since that time, we've been waiting on the lead agency determination from the DEC. Word on that is hopefully sometime this week it comes out. But I've been hearing that for a couple weeks, so I'm not going to hold my breath. But just briefly, to refresh everyone's recollection, this is a 30-lot residential subdivision in Ruby Woods off of Eastwood Drive. This is the town of Ulster, this is the town of Woodstock, and access to the subdivision is through existing Eastwoods Drive and the town of Woodstock, which we are only extending 1,200 feet to reach the Ulster parcel. Two changes that I want to note since the last time we are here. One is that we have modified the recreation lot. Previously, we were proposing a 2,400 square foot recreation building, a tennis court and 2 pickleball courts, but the Land Conservancy owns some land to the north. They were concerned about some noise impacts, so we have removed the outdoor amenities from the plan. So all that is left on the amenities lot is just the 2,400 square foot rec or fitness center building. Also, another change that I want to note too is that at the bottom here, we have included a lot line adjustment. So the Ruby Run and Gun Club owns land here, and then they have a parcel down here. Right now, these two Rod and Gun Club parcels are not connected. We've been in contact with them, and what we are going to do is we are going to give them 2.3 acres down here so that these two previously unconnected lots can be connected. And that's something that we are working on with the Gun Club. So that's the update. We provided, I know, a robust submission. A lot of that material was what we had already submitted to Woodstock in anticipation of this board hopefully being designated lead agency. I think you properly should. But one thing I want to just start the discussion on in response to some of NVP's comments is to just talk about the layout and why the subdivision is laid out the way that it is. So in our subdivision, we included this color map showing the elevations, and kind of the cooler colors are the lower elevations, and the hotter colors, like a heat map, are the higher elevations.
I think it's the other way around, isn't it?
No.
No?
Oh, wait. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's, I actually had that backwards, thank you.
Okay.
So we had purposely chosen the layout that we did to try to limit the steep slopes disturbances, which you can kind of see here, and then avoid the wetlands, because there's a spine of wetlands that goes down this side of the property. Actually, maybe I'll turn it, because the orientation is off. Yes, north. And to try to place the subdivision in the lower lying flat areas on the site. So
It'd be useful for the board, oh, perfect, okay.
Yep.
To know, because
So-
that's more than just the Ulster parcel there.
Yep,
Yep.
so this is that layout with the lots. So what we did is this kind of flatter area up on the northern portion of this lot is where we focused a lot of the development. So we've kind of already clustered a lot of the development on the northern half of the site. So actually, 3/4 or 75% of the lots are located on the northern half of the lot. 23 of the 31 lots are up here, and only 8 on this little tail are on the rest of the site. And these lots up here are mostly 1 acre and change, and as I mentioned, this allows it to site most of the development on the flattest area of the site. And then just to run through some highlights about, kind of how this helps the environmental design of the project. So by doing this, we're only converting 5 acres of the 106 total project site to permanent new impervious surfaces like roads, buildings, or other areas. And that's largely because we're only developing 1/3 of the units that could be developed on the site. 77 are possible, but we're only doing 30. So once this is developed and we reestablish the habitat for the areas that need to be cleared for the well and septics, 85% of the existing forest, meadow, grassland, and brushland cover will be preserved across the entire site. Also, the road layout, to the extent feasible, and our engineer can talk about this more, follows the existing contours. So the steep slope disturbance is kept to a minimum. It's only about 2 acres of the whole 106 acre project site, and most of that disturbance is just because of the access road. But we do have a fully compliant SWIP, which means that the runoff condition from the site will be the same post condition as exists today in the undeveloped state, which means that there's really no environmental impact from that perspective. Also, we are proposing to sprinkler the homes in accordance with the fire code, and what that does is avoids the need to develop a secondary access road across the Ulster site and then back into Woodstock. Also, as I mentioned, there are 5.59 acres of wetlands. They're mostly on the west side of the site, running north to south. But we are only disturbing 0.04 acres right up here for the access road. We tried to select one of the narrowest points possible to try to reduce that impact. And then for the rest of the development, any home sites are located over 100 feet from any wetlands. We've also done a lot of work with species already too. We conducted a comprehensive habitat survey report, which I know is under review, but we do have bald eagle sign off. We have northern long-eared bat sign off. We are proposing to comply with the no cut period, which is the accepted mitigation, and there's not any threatened, endangered, or rare plants. Traffic, we've submitted the traffic studies. That's also been reviewed by Woodstock's traffic consultant, and they have agreed with our conclusions that there isn't a traffic impact. And we included that in our submission in the board, so you have all of that information. And also we have sign off from SHPO for historic and archaeological resources, and they did specifically look at the old bluestone quarries on the site and found that we are not impacting them. So we did submit for your consideration a draft part 3. I know it's a little long, but it's a quick, easy read. So Max, I don't know if you want to take it from here, go through some points in your memo.
Yeah, thank you. This is a very complicated, I would say, development. There's sort of a lot of pieces to consider, pieces of concern. I think we have sort of big picture items and detail items, right? And I'm not going to try and go through the detail items. I just want to give an idea. You have a full memo from us, sort of for all the detail items. I did think that your introduction of the color-coded map helped to understand the way this property sits. Like, where is the low spot? Because when it was just lines, you really couldn't figure it out, right? It was just, what is this going up? Is this going down? So that sort of gives you a better idea of the lay of the land. I think that it probably would be helpful at some point to zoom out a little bit so that we understand how this also then relates to the surrounding. So for example, the areas that you are building on, the land rises to the east of it. Is that correct? Generally?
I believe so.
That was my impression. So we'll need to know that when we get into the visual resources analysis at some point. And I know in your response you said sort of to be done later.
Right, and we were, not to jump ahead, but we were looking for some feedback from this board, whether that's something that you would like to see and where you would like us to, take a look at that.
I think that's kind of naturally part of the seeker review process. So because no lead agency has been designated, and this is also the reason why I didn't really dive deep into that tome that you provided us of information, and it's appreciated that you've done all this work. But I'm sure you don't want me to spend 30, 40 hours reviewing it if Woodstock's lead agency, and it doesn't matter what I recommend, right? Because they're going to have their own professional reviewing it on that side.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and just to speak on that, I mean, I would be surprised if Woodstock is lead agency. I'd be quite shocked. All the precedent points to Ulster, so I think we're happy for you to start the review. We've been at this 18 months.
The one piece that I did start was the habitat survey because I wanted to get it's seasonal, right? Mm-hmm. So once you get snow on the ground, it gets a lot harder for him so we did get that done. But, and I understand your take, and I agree with your take that this board does deserve, and based on what the criteria for judgment are, should be lead agency. That said, I have seen DEC make decisions that are not consistent with their own rules. Actually, did I say that out loud? I guess I did. So, that said, I just think, we should be getting that decision soon, hopefully this week. Once that's done, we're going to recommend a part 2. And I think that's the proper venue to, process-wise, to go through and say, okay, planning board, I'm recommending that this is a potential impact. and then the planning board considers whether they agree with me. And then if there is, then we take a hard look at it and say, is it in fact a moderate or large impact? Is it an important impact? Or is there some other mitigating rationale for why it's not going to be a problem, right? Like you've already gone through this archaeological review and have sign off on SHPO. You already done the traffic for Woodstock and you already have their consultants sign off on these things. So those are things that we consider once we've gone through the process of identifying that large laundry list of items that we're going to consider as part of the environmental review. I thought that was helpful. Do you have this steep slopes map? Is that like the third sheet there? I thought that was helpful as well to understand. This shows elevation, that would show steep slopes. So you'll be able to understand. Perfect, right? So this is where the difficult areas of topography are, so steep slopes. And I also like that you guys, as we suggested, provided that cut and fill analysis. I did have a couple of questions because some of them seemed a little bit difficult, like at the edge of, at the toe of what would look like it was going to be an engineered slope, you had a 23-foot
Sure.
fill.
So once we further develop the architectural plans, we are exploring the possibility of bulkhead basements,
Okay.
which would definitely alleviate some of those more extreme slopes in the rear to some of the houses. And that's definitely an option, as well as angling driveways could also help the slopes in the rear. But again, until we progress further.
Yeah, no, I'm less concerned about the idea that you would make it less impactful. I was just concerned that we're having an accurate understanding.
Sure.
Because if you have a towed slope, like if you have an area that you are filling, let's say, right? At the toe of that, you might have a foot. At the top, you might have 6 feet. But this was listing that you had 6 feet on top and then 23 at the toe.
Sure.
So I didn't know if that sort of got reversed or.
Oh, no, I definitely understand that. So it's a little bit hard to convey because it's such a large area, and the spots are every 25 feet instead of every 5 feet or every 1 foot.
Right.
So we can definitely provide a more zoomed in area of maybe the problem areas.
Can you do a colored analysis like you've done for other things where the deeper the cut, the redder, and the higher the fill, the bluer or whatever?
Sure, we can definitely provide that, and we can overlay it with the numerical values.
I think that's great. Yeah, that I think would give the best understanding. The other thing that we were sort of thinking about when we were looking at the cut and fill analysis is because this is all shale, we assume that most of the geology in this area is going to be shallow shale. How much of that are you going to be able to use on site as fill? Is that going to compact? Those are the questions that I think we need to know. So you can balance. I think you're down to 10,000 cubic yards or so net with, let's say 90,000 of cut and 100,000 of fill. Whatever those numbers were, I don't recall off the top of my head. My point is that assumes that you're going to be able to use what you're cutting as fill, but if it's all shale, are you going to be able to do that? And if you're not going to be able to do that, sort of what is going to be the net reusable cut? And then how much are you going to have to get off the site because you just can't use it?
Sure.
Or are you going to stockpile it? So.
Right, and then unfortunately, you can only estimate how much, right?
Mhm.
So allowances will be carried in estimates for such occasions as this.
Okay.
And that will be provided in the estimate. But we can't guess, every 10 feet whether the rock is shallow, whether there's suitable soils. We can only provide the testing we've done.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that's not throughout the whole site. It can't encompass the whole site.
I mean, when I did the walkthrough,
Sure.
it was definitely my observation that there wasn't a lot of variety. Most of the site is sort of shallow bedrock. I don't think you have any deep soils in this area. I mean, maybe your testing is different, but that's sort of how when I was walking around, it was a lot on the surface. That's why the trees are kind of so scraggly, right? Because they really have anything to catch hold of. That said, I think this is a lot of detail that this board does not have to engage itself in until it becomes lead agency in some respect. And I do get your point that we're expecting that to happen. So, like I said, I don't want to get into the details of the submission, some of the comments that we have. We do continue to bring up the reservation of parkland. We do understand you're providing on-site. We continue to defer to the town attorney on whether or not that serves the town's needs in terms of future recreation. We continue to have concern with the idea that we're engineering this road to meet New York State DOT standards. I know that, as I understand it, Woodstock has suggested that you need to meet those standards or get a waiver from the state. It doesn't make sense on a site like this to build a 26-foot wide road. You're just cutting more slope or filling more slope. You're downing more trees. You're building more. You're disturbing more of an area that is highly topographic. And if you are doing private roads, I think it's pretty ubiquitous in the Catskill region to have private roads with narrower pavement widths that are cleared to allow, and with soft shoulders, to allow emergency vehicles to come in safely, to allow for people to walk along the side of the street, but not paving everything, right? This is not a flat subdivision in an urban area. This is out in the woods, and it's in a natural environment. So we're continuing to recommend that you consider, and that the board consider, a narrower paved width and a narrower cleared width than New York State DOT standards.
Yeah, and we're happy to, not build more road than we need. Obviously, we had just reached out, just to give the board the rest of the context, we had reached out to the state because the town of Woodstock was under the impression that for any new fire apparatus access road over a certain width, it needed to be 26 feet wide. When we contacted the state, that's what they indicated. We have the correspondence, we can share it, but if, maybe that's not accurate, or if there's some waiver that we can get from the town for an alternate design, then of course we're happy to pursue that.
I mean, there has to be, because communities all over this county are approving 18-foot, 20-foot wide roads. So, so one of the things that we had recommended, because this is a significant development, it's early in the, well, I know you say you've been working on it 18 months.
I mean, I will, object to being in it classified as early. We've made 7 submissions. We've provided, reams of information. I mean, the habitat report, and through no fault of your own, I mean, we provided that in March of 2024, and it's just being reviewed. So we have been at this a while. We do have pretty much every sign off from any outside agency. So I think we're, not too far away from.
I will amend my statement. You're not early in the process, but early in my review of this. I would suggest that, I know the town engineer had concerns about the ability to build septics in this area based on county requirements, based on the geology. So, were you able to meet with?
Yeah, so we had a discussion, and I'll let Ashley provide the update.
Yes, so we had a discussion with Bruce, and he did note that we do have to make our septic areas larger, just so that it can expand in the future if need be. So that is one of the changes that we are working through, providing just a little bit more space for those areas. And any changes to lot lines would result from the septic, not so much changing the layout of the road or the layout of the houses.
Okay, so you met with him, you went through all his issues, and you came away with it where when we give it to him later, it's not going to come back with, you guys can't build this.
Correct.
Good.
And one thing I would like to know as far as the road, we did discuss the steepness and the cutting and filling, and the way that the site is at the moment, or in real life, if we take away grading in one area, then it adds up in another area, right? So it's at the best case scenario at the moment, in our eyes, obviously, with cutting and filling, with evening out the cut and fills. And the slopes of the road, we maximized at 8%, which may seem like a lot on paper, but 88 curb ramps maximize at 8.3%. So the road should be easily transversable and not needing sidewalks.
Okay. We talked about recommending average density. I know that there's a desire to do a standard plan. I will just note that average density is recommended as a means to reduce disturbance, and it is recommended by the town's comprehensive plan, in particular for this area of the town.
Yeah, and you know, like my point earlier, I would argue, I think we're already pretty much there. I mean, most of the development.
But that is a conforming, like each lot conforms to the zoning, right?
Right, yeah, but they're right now clustered in this upper area. They're most of them just over the 60,000 square feet to, you know, instead of, say, spreading it out more to use the full 106 acres, we've really limited that most 75% of the development to the top 50% of the lot.
Okay. We talked about the habitat assessment. I'm anticipating having our ecologist report back within the next week. As soon as we get it back, we will forward it to the board. We talked about the visual analysis. That I think we can talk about once we get to the part 2. This was sort of a comment or an idea that Megan had, but I don't know. I think you might have answered it already. I think her point is that this lot line revision that involves the property that's in the town of Kingston.
Yes, no, I saw that comment. So we will change how we are showing it. So we will do the lot line revision with the Ruby parcel here, which is still in
the town of Ulster.
Town of Ulster, and it provides the same connection.
Yeah, I think that will allow us to not drag the town of Kingston in, right? Okay. Okay. With seeker coordination, we've already discussed that. I don't know where we are. I don't know if it has been sent to the county at this point.
It has not.
Okay. And I think that's it. So again, my overall recommendation is we're waiting to hear back from DEC. Once DEC comes, I think things can move forward to a determination of significance much quicker. But until we get that, so we're just spinning our wheels, really.
So just one thing, you know, comments about the layout. we just wanted tonight, because I guess, this is one of the main things that we can have a discussion about without seeker, is we just wanted to make sure the board was okay with the layout as we have it proposed, and if you have any questions for us as to how and why we did that, because what we would like to do moving forward is operate under the understanding that this is the layout, and then the other issues and mitigations that we'll look at through the rest of the seeker process will be around implementing the plan that we are showing the board.
I have a question. So these houses, I'm assuming wells, you're going to be?
Yes.
A lot of rock, a lot of quarry land. How easy is it going to be to access water, and how deep are you going to have to go? Do you have any idea?
I think they're thinking like 400 feet for wells, maybe. We have to go down a
I
bit.
can't remember what it said in the memo. I know that was provided to the board memo. But it is relatively.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, so as part of the DOH permit, we'll have to drill 3 wells, do the drawdown test before anything could be approved by them.
Okay.
I want to, it wasn't in my memo, but I do want to say that this project was very difficult for me to understand before I went to the site. Once I went to the site, everything became very clear to me how this property related to the topography. And I think that your north half makes a lot of sense because that is the flat area. There's a gully on one side, there's a gully on the other, right? And you're building within the area between that gully, those two gullies. That said, I think when you walk through it, and you look at where the homes would be relative to the two gullies and understand some of the challenges, the number one challenge I see is that first road crossing right after your recreational area, right? You have that recreational area. I think you're cutting at the front of that about 10 feet, and I think you're filling about 15 feet in the gully to get it's about a 30-foot drop there, right? Between the top of.
I'm looking at it at the right-hand side of the recreational building.
So if you're looking at the recreational building toward the right, you're getting toward where the drop-off is.
Correct.
You're going down about 10 feet there.
Correct.
And then the bottom of the gully, you're raising about 15 feet.
In some areas, we are raising it considerably.
Right, and then you're cutting into the slope coming out. So right now you have about a 25 to 30 foot differential. So you come in, you go down about 25, 30 feet, you go across about 25 feet, and then you come back up about 25 feet.
Correct.
I mean, that's sort of why I suggested you get the planning board some cross sections.
Right, and we can definitely provide those.
But if the board is used to doing site visits, I would definitely recommend one here, because I don't think I could have understood the way this project lays out, and what is important, what is practically important with this project, until I actually walked on the site, because it's a very unique site, and it's very different than anything I've ever seen in my career. So.
Sure, and one issue in that location, if we were to bring the road lower to make the change in grade not so drastic, there's possibilities of the road flooding, which isn't ideal also.
Mm-hmm.
And the stormwater basin south of the road would flood into the road.
Well,
It
how are
would
you
impact the
dealing?
lands.
What were you going to do? Were you going to just do sort of big culverts and build the road over them, or
That crossing area, yes, we do have culverts.
okay?
We are proposing either an arched culvert to allow for natural crossings, or a larger sized culvert buried partially.
Okay. And about how high on the culvert would you say?
Wait a minute, I have it right here.
Well, if she's looking it up, it goes without saying, just to say it out loud, we would of course welcome the planning board to come visit the site, and we'll have the engineers there and we can walk it together, really at any time, so just based on your availability.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
and had a very positive impact on the Woodstock Planning Board too.
Yeah.
Actually getting to come out and see the existing road and runway and everything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're proposing a 36-inch culvert at the moment. We could also go with smaller culverts side by side at that crossing, but it's imperative to keep the bottom open for future crossings.
A 36-inch arch culvert?
No, that's a normal culvert or a normal pipe at the moment.
Okay.
We're exploring the idea of culvert side by side or a larger arch.
Okay, got it. That's sort of an overview of where I am.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and just a little more last bit of context. I mean, it's hard to see in this map, but this is wetlands and this is wetlands, so there's really no place not to cross.
Right.
You know, and kind of where we're going is, you know, the thinnest part. So we're trying to make the best of the situation on the ground.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? No? Okay. All right, well, thank you. Hopefully, we'll get that
Yes.
determination sooner than later, and,
Fingers crossed.
yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night. Thank you for coming.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Okay. Chris?
I'm back.
Yes.
So this is Blake, and as of the last few months, we've moved from just a subdivision to a subdivision and lot line revision with the adjoining neighbor Schmidt and O'Driscoll. What I will give you right now for a station, this is the agency form allowing me to represent them. I know that was questioned in the review. So to go through the review briefly, so you know, I'm going to start with, I just gave station number 3 under submission, 1 and 2 and 3. We covered that. So under subdivision plat, you know, we had the same thing, graphic scale, topography. You know, this has been going on since January now, so this is the first time we've heard topography. So whether we're able to waive that or not, or whether it is vital and we can use, you know, the resource mapper to create some kind of topography, we're gonna leave that up to the board. But we did cover the, obviously the small stuff. Again, the location of proposed monuments, that's something that is more or less, not so much a town regulation, but something that's just being asked of us. The owner's endorsement, we've made that change here on this particular one. Let me just see here, what other items were on here? So we did the owner's endorsement. We've added the parcel number, which was required, that was left out previously. Seeker coordination, that's you guys. With regards to our jurisdictional determination, that was made months and months ago. We have gotten no response. The town is CC'd in that, and the town will also receive that email at the same time I do. I have probably 4 others that I have not been responded to yet, so it is not just this project. Multiple, not only in the town of Ulster, but Saugerty, City of Kingston, and so on, I have not been responded to yet.
So did you go through the protocol where you've informed them that their 90 days is up, their 30 days up, and then the 10 days up, so you get the...
I have not done that yet.
Okay.
But that, I have multiple projects that are in this particular situation, so that is something we can handle immediately.
Are we at 90 days with this one?
Yeah, we've much more than 90 days, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense a lot for you to get that out, because that's what happened with the last applicant, is there's no DEC jurisdiction on what,
Yeah.
it's probably like 10 acres of state wetlands, right?
Which is understandable, and keep in mind, for the most part here, so a quick overview, this is essentially a 2-lot subdivision. The land is on both sides of the road. The 5.6 acres, which is on the lake side of the road, AKA the east side of the road, is being added to the adjoiner, Mr. and Mrs. Schmitz and Driscoll, which will increase their property from 3.94 to 9.55. So this is where essentially, as you mentioned in your review, where the actual state wetland may be is in the area of Lake Katrine itself. It is not in the area of where we are proposing essentially the 2-lot subdivision. This here is just going to be a lot line revision and added to as more or less a privacy buffer. From what we are understanding, this side of the road is not even developable by standards, but is being added to the existing home for a privacy buffer, whereas if we are looking to develop these 2 lots here. And this side of the road here, the wet area is essentially not a state wetland. They're calling it a federal wetland at this point in time. We're not even sure that that is actually the proper criteria, as it is basically just blocked water. So it is not necessarily an area that has been, sitting water. It is blocked water. So that is the situation that we have with this particular area here. Moving on from the wetland issue.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
Because I get your point. It's just blocked water. I think the reason why we need the JD is because the state is saying, no matter what the size, if you're in an urbanized area, we may take jurisdiction and we may make you stay 100 feet away from those areas of blocked water, right? So I think that raises the issue with this board is, are they going to be an involved agency for this review? Do you need a wetlands permit? Which, if we have that parcel JD, we can know that definitively. And I don't know that we can do that without understanding if there'll be a parcel JD. So if you bring that 90-day, if we don't hear back from you, I think it's after 90 days, you write to them and say, if I don't hear back from you in 30 days, we're going to proceed as if there's no JD. And then I think you have to give them one last 10-day, right? So if you can do that now, you're good. There's no state wetland permits for 5 years, and this board doesn't have to coordinate anything with DEC.
So if I look back now and I see that it's been, 4 months, and they haven't responded to me, essentially,
You can try.
Yeah.
You could try and say this is your 90-day and 30-day warning, but the way the process is written is you have to give them a notice after 90, and then a notice after 30, and then that final 10 days, and that's where you get, once that 10-day goes without response, then you go ahead and you're free for 5 years. So I would suggest you get going, because you don't, if I were you, I wouldn't want to give them more time than they have, right? That said, I think for this board's concern is we need to know if they are an involved agency. We could proceed as an unlisted action without coordinating with them, but my understanding is this board does like to coordinate. Is that correct? When possible. So, and we are basically the only impact that we would identify on that part 2 is disturbance to wetlands. So that's the only issue that you would have to cover, and you would cover that by providing us a part 3 that says a lot of what you're saying. It's just blocked water. It doesn't have habitat value. There's no wetland vegetation here. Whatever those factors are, you would put in the part 3 and you submit to the board. But I don't think we can move forward until we understand whether DEC is an involved agency or not.
Okay, so with that being said, I will follow up this evening with them and see what I can do about moving forward. Again, I have multiple projects in this particular buffering situation, and I feel like they are way behind with regards to. They are way behind. I have not even received anything that says, "Oh, hey, we've reviewed this so far."
They've taken on hundreds of thousands of acres of new wetlands with this law, and my understanding is they hired a handful of people to process the permits.
And I've been through a couple other jurisdictional determinations early on in the year where they really didn't even have an answer for me when meeting on site. They were still kind of like, well, we don't really know.
Yeah.
So, at what point does it become that I mean, that we are, not responsible to wait for them. Is that the 30-day, 90-day?
Well, that's one way that this board can proceed, is to proceed with uncoordinated seeker review. In which case, you basically are saying, we know this DEC review may be an involved agency, but we're going to do our seeker, and DEC is going to have to do their own seeker if they have jurisdiction. It sort of doubles up the cost for you if that happens, but the other thing we can do is we can just coordinate now as if they have jurisdiction, whether they have it or not. And then they can always respond to us and say they have concerns, they don't have concerns. That's the other way we could do it.
But if we were to say that they did have concern, then we would be dealing with a 100-foot buffer all the way around and all of that stuff.
I don't think you're going to get any response faster if you include them in a seeker review than you would if you submit a JD parcel. I would think you'd get a faster response with a parcel JD, because that's actually a permit that they're issuing. This is just seeker.
Yeah.
So that might be the best way to proceed.
Yeah, Mike, it's up to you, but I think if you really should send a certified letter to DEC saying that 90 days have elapsed. If they don't respond within 10 days, then you're good for 5 years. So I mean, that's the way to go, in my opinion. But you're the applicant.
Yeah, I think we'll go that route.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll go that route. So we'll work on a certified letter to them. That'll get us our most prompt response. All right, so we've accomplished that. We're going to handle it in that route, so the board knows.
And irrespective of that jurisdiction, I think it makes sense for you to address the issue of wetlands, which is still going to come up in the local seeker review. So tell us what, either you're not disturbing wetlands, those wetlands are not important, whatever the factors are that you want this board to consider when understanding whether there's going to be impact to wetlands.
And if they don't respond to that?
No, that's to this board.
Oh, that's to this board.
Because
okay.
what I'm gonna do is when you come back, I'm gonna recommend a part 2 to this board that will identify wetlands as the one issue under the part 2 form that you need to address here, because you have wetlands. And I'm gonna recommend to them that they ask you to prepare a draft part 3. That's how we like to approach seeker. It's your benefit to get to the neg deck. You tell us why there's not going to be an impact to wetlands. We peer review it. We tell the board, yes, these are valid reasons, or we think there's still concerns. They get to decide whether to adopt that part 3 and go to a neg deck, right? So I would suggest that if you want to save time, get started on that part 3 to tell us why you're not impacting these wetlands, or these aren't wetlands of significance in terms of hydrology or ecology, whatever things you want, or you're not getting near them. Maybe you're not disturbing them, or maybe you're staying 50 feet away from them, whatever it is that you want this board to consider on the way to saying there won't be an impact on wetlands.
We are 100 feet away, we will be 100 feet away.
Yeah, but is that going to benefit us now, that if we say we are 100 feet away from everything, is that going to make a...
If you can say that you're going to stay at least 100 feet away from the wetlands, yeah, I think that benefits you.
Yeah,
We are.
yeah. Okay, so then that's a possibility. So we have 2 routes.
And by the way, if DEC does take jurisdiction, that's what they're going to ask you to do anyway.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, it doesn't
I
matter.
have to say, I don't think the DEC is going to take jurisdiction over this side of the road. I mean, obviously, this is Lake Katrine down in here. If they, but this is not developable. And if we were to have to stay 100 feet here, it really
You're in the road,
it really
yeah.
makes no difference.
Yeah.
So it's really just the biggest concern, I would say, would be this area here in Lot 2 would be
Yeah.
our biggest concern. Otherwise, and that moves forward to the Ulster County Board of Health. We originally had talked when we were, 6 months ago here with a letter of feasibility for a septic, because we don't know where the house is going to be here, but we do know that there's multiple areas for a septic.
Well, tell us don't tell us 100 feet. Tell us
Yeah.
what you think you can do. So if you think you can stay 25 feet away, if you think it could stay 50 feet, whatever you think you can set up for lot 2 and lot 1, put that in the part 3, and the board will consider it, because you're staying away from the wetland some distance, right? It might not be what DEC would require you to do, but if it's not jurisdictional, then it's up to this board to determine whether there'll be an impact.
All right, so with that being said, we have a few options here. Warren, you're wrapping your head around this too, because you and I are going to discuss this moving forward. I don't want to give him any more projects, poor Warren, but, all right, so moving forward from there, again, I know there was the question on the review for a signature block for the Board of Health. But again, we are not proposing this to be a building lot. We are proposing this to be a building lot here. So, but yet there are multiple areas for a septic on this lot. We are not going to tie a potential buyer down to a specific area. So is, as we previously discussed, a letter of feasibility showing that we have perk and so on for this lot acceptable? For lot number 1 being 6.934 acres. So there's multiple home sites there. It's hard for us to tie down a potential buyer to a specific site where they're gonna need a septic. Now, keep in mind, moving forward, we had discussed this previously, and it also has been the status quo for subdivisions as such within the town for the last so long, whereas this is the first time that we've had this particular situation.
I mean, my understanding of why this was put into the memo is because the code requires it.
Okay, so if you're telling, if the code requires a septic approval and not a letter of feasibility is not acceptable?
No, the language that is that it should include space for endorsement by the health department. That's, I'm not reading into
Yeah.
why.
Yeah, so that's, but this would be the first time, in my experience in being here, at least within the last 5 or 8 years, that has been a requirement. So we've never seen that before. I've actually never put a Board of Health approval on any subdivision that I've ever presented to the town of Ulster. In my 12 years of private practice, I've never had that happen.
Okay, so the
this is
one
the
I
first time.
did, that you didn't do, that I did 18 years ago, okay, for my subdivision, I had to have it on there, and they made me put in 13,000 square feet of some obscure,
And
and I didn't
again,
need 13,000 square feet.
again, that is totally up to you guys. It's just something that's new to me, because I haven't seen it in 13 years. I haven't seen that pop up on any 12 or 13 years. I've never had ever put a Board of Health approval on any subdivision that has gone through the town of Ulster. So this would be a first for me.
I'm looking up the code section to see what it exactly says, because here it is, 161.26.
So then what ends up happening is that if we perk an area, decide that it's got good soil, we put a septic there, we have a buyer, and they don't want to be anywhere within 200 feet of that area, that septic permit is completely erroneous, yet we have sold the lot to somebody else who wants to put a house somewhere else, and we're back at the same position as if we didn't have a Board of Health approval. Because now we're back at a lot that's not technically,
So this is what the code says. The following notation shall be shown on the plat. Endorsement by the Ulster County Health Department and any stipulations of that department. Only tentative written endorsement is necessary before the public hearing, but final endorsement on the plat is needed before filing with the county clerk.
okay, so technically speaking, for the first time ever, in this particular situation, we need a Board of Health approved septic in somewhere on that lot. We're not saying that they're gonna use it, but we need to have it. We're not saying that the house is gonna be built to connect to that septic, because we could be 200, 400, 600 feet away from it. But we need a septic approval to get a planning board approval.
They're asking for approval or an endorsement?
An endorsement.
So are we showing the primary and reserve areas?
I don't know what the county requires to provide the endorsement. Again, I'm not
Yeah.
keyed into what the county requires for septic.
I will reach out to my local contacts at,
Which is amazing, but at the same time too, as we, generally speaking, we have had a PE give us a certified letter that says this lot has multiple feasible septic sites on it. That's how we've had.
This board can waive this requirement. So this board can say we don't need to require an endorsement.
Can they
I
say-
would defer to Warren on whether that is advisable or not.
I'm gonna check with Department of Health. As a generalization, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna call out a singular lot, I'm gonna say, have you been doing this, and if such, what would you like to see? And then if I get an answer, where'd you get that from?
Yeah.
Alright.
So, but also I'd like to answer to the fact of, is a letter of feasibility technically illegal? Because I mean, that's what we've been doing now for well over a decade. So is that something that we shouldn't be doing? I mean, is that technically against the law? So those are the kind of answers that I'm kind of curious about. Because this would be the first time we've ever handled things in this direction versus what we've done for the last.
I think this is a local requirement. I don't think this is a requirement, although I don't.
I think we talked about it earlier, in that Shelley Merton, who used to run that department.
I know her well.
Her and I had.
So Lobianco's property
A
that
serious
is off
argument.
of Old Kings Highway by Ruby, I looked at that, it was for sale. That had the locations of the septic tank on every parcel.
Yes, and my father was the subdivider of that. Dave Ryder was the PE. And the reason for that most likely being is that that was 90%
water.
rock. It was water, and it was, 50% of the lots in that subdivision were bedrock. So that's understandable. There was a lot of hard rock lots in that subdivision.
So I mean,
Yeah.
it's been done before.
It's been done.
Yeah.
Just
not the
confirming
first
that
time.
what we've been doing historically is not
Well,
technically
at
illegal.
that time, she said that.
Location too, you just said it,
We
Mike.
weren't. She
You
said,
know, the
well,
location's
they are. I
gonna
said, well, we don't.
mandate
Yeah.
Oh,
this
that's one
area.
plant, and it
If you're in
stopped right there.
wetlands, I'm sure the requirements and they're gonna be more stringent.
Yeah, whatever the town decides is fine by us, we just need direction. Because we don't want to keep guessing at certain things and then being held up. So it's just whatever the town says we have to do, we're gonna do.
Can't you do a couple perks in a bigger area?
You can, but then how can you design a system? We can do perks in many areas and with a letter of feasibility, but we can't design a system when the perks are 200 and 300 feet apart from each other. So that's the issue you run into there. So you either.
Maybe you can pre-sell the lots and then go back and design the septic.
Yeah.
Well, let me put it to you this way, I'd be hard pressed for you to find a lot that you cannot put a septic on. I don't care if it's solid rock.
Well, at least
You
take
can put a system
deposits
in,
and,
but
you
you're
know,
gonna spend
get,
$100,000 to put the system in.
right.
So the feasibility is what's the cost gonna be? But I've seen systems put in on the side of a mountain, I've seen systems put in with a rock base. They just become very costly, just like you're gonna drill a well. Okay, I'm gonna drill a well. I don't know how, I don't douse a well, so I can't tell you if it's gonna be 100, 200, 1,000, So at what point did we decide that we're gonna have all this information?
Nail it down, let the
Prior to.
customer pay if they wanna move it.
Which is, possible, but it hinders the sale of the lot because it's an extemporaneous cost. Whereas we've been going with the feasibility letter for the last decade. So that's all. We're gonna let you guys make that decision. That's all there is to it. So with that being said,
And they're big lots, Mike. It's not
yeah,
like they're
no,
small
there's,
lots.
we have nearly 7 acres here to put a septic system. So there's gonna be multiple areas for a septic there. So back to the, next thing is number 3, EAFs, question 3A, revised to reflect the area. I did that here, I have copies for you. Clarification as to disturbance, we're not proposing any disturbance. Question 16, I am not allowed to revise, although it has asked me to revise the 100-year floodplain question based upon the fact that that is put in there by the
auto,
EAF mapper. So
Understood.
I cannot revise that. But I do have an EAF here with the other 2 questions that you asked me to revise.
Thank you.
One for you, one for station.
Okay.
So otherwise, that is it. And moving forward, the order of operations is obviously, I follow up with the JD this evening. I start preparing a part 3, and then we get an answer on septics. So those are our 3 items. Is it too early to ask to be moved towards a public hearing?
I don't think so. I don't know,
Board have any thought?
we can resolve these things while you're moving toward
Yeah,
that.
we have 30 days. We'll get a lot of stuff accomplished in 30 days. And if we don't have everything accomplished in 30 days, we just, keep the public hearing open or keep moving forward.
This is not within, this is not subject to county review?
I don't believe so. I think the notes mentioned that.
500 feet of the county
No.
road.
Yeah, okay,
Municipal boundary.
okay.
Yeah?
Yeah,
We could do that by motion. Okay, do we have a motion to set a public hearing next month for?
Make
the-
that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second it.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we'll schedule the public hearing pending all the information we discussed.
Sounds good.
Okay,
We'll keep you guys posted with any updates. I'm going to reach out to the DEC when I return to the office. Thank you. Have a good
thank you.
night.
Have a good night.
They're probably closed.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They don't work my hours. This is in Jolly County.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for your patience.
My name's Joe Huntz. I'm a civil engineer with Ingalls and Associates. I believe you had Pete at the last meeting in August. I was double booked, so I couldn't make it, unfortunately. I'm sure you guys all know Warren at this point with IPP Solar. So since the last meeting, we're in a similar situation as the previous gentleman. We did reach out to DEC and submit the parcel JD process and got that started back in August. That will expire sometime in November. I have the exact date on my calendar. It's actually a 10-day period for the certified mail, so once that 90 days expires, you only have to wait 10 business days. That's all that DEC has to respond. However, in anticipation of them actually taking these wetlands, because we meet at least two of the 11 unique criteria since we're within a floodplain, and I believe the town of Ulster is considered an urban area, so that's 2 of those criteria. We went ahead and did put a 100-foot buffer on the wetlands here on site, so you can see on this blue line that just shows the buffer area. So for the new portion of the project, it's largely unaffected, but there are some improvements that IPP Solar is proposing that would be affected. That includes this charging station area down here where we will have a mix, and I should have used a different color, but we'll have a mix of actual direct wetland impacts and buffer impacts. And additionally, they're proposing a new porous access road to have access east and west to the site. And that would all be within the buffer area as well. That kind of follows a contour here too, so we're not looking at any kind of
Yeah, and actually this is following the existing water line easement.
right
there.
As I'm sure you're all aware, we also have this new portion which was not included in the previous approval from the town. I believe that date was back in July of 2023 when the original project was approved. So we have this new 4.6 acre area of the aero compact solar panels, kind of lower profile to minimize any visual impact across Route 209. Other than that, I'm trying to think if there's any other. We did receive the memo from your planner, from you guys back in August, so we had a chance to respond to that. I did see in the project file, unfortunately I didn't have a chance to do written comments, but there was a new memo with some additional comments. I skimmed through that. I would characterize them as kind of a mix, mostly technical clarifications. I believe at the last meeting there was some confusion about where the Tesla Megapack battery storage is going to be located. Because we're trying to work to accommodate this wetland buffer and the wetlands, we're really limited on where we can place that. So we called out a new location for that. That's in the back here where we have flatter grade, but we're also outside of the 100-foot wetland buffer. Because we expect to be within, covered under that new DEC guideline, we will be applying, should they take the wetlands, for the new general permit for wetland impacts, and they have special considerations for
solar project specifically, you're allowed up to a quarter acre of buffer impacts just for the access road. And we're hoping, since a large portion of that is actually to make improvements to Woods Road to widen it to 16 feet, that will be within that quarter acre. So those are really the major changes. Again, from the last memo, we did make some technical clarifications on this plan. I understand there's some more that need to be made, but that's where we're at right now.
We'll also add that we have reached out to King's Fire, the church, regarding an access easement, and we're working our way through that process. Unfortunately, they keep changing their attorneys, so
Yeah, we will need to
we're on our third attorney already. So anyway,
we will need to show, as they're working through a draft easement area. We probably, until they work out the exact location of that, won't put meets and bounds and rate of description, but at least there will be, approximate area of where that's going to be located, so the board can understand how, since the new array is going to be back here, they need to obviously have access over that property.
Any questions, comments from the board? Go ahead, Chris, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, so I think since you have this, I think there are some additional finalizations we have. What does it look like for the mega pack area? What does the widening of the road look like? Do we have the easement? You're gonna have to, so the charging area, the mega pack whatever area is going.
no, well, yeah.
I'm not talking about the BESS, I'm talking about
You're
the,
talking about just the EV chargers.
the EV chargers.
Yeah, right here. Yeah.
The EV chargers will be open to the public, right?
Yes.
So we'll want some lighting there.
I did see that comment,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll have this, we have a sub-consultant we work with for lighting, so we can reach out to them.
With regard to the BESS, I think we need to know what that looks like.
Okay.
You know, if you want a detail.
I think we need to know details of what that, I mean, that, you may have heard that this town is
But-
reviewing another.
Right, but again, you gotta keep in mind that what we're
Different
talking about
scales.
is a minuscule
Understood.
size compared to what they're talking about.
Put it on the map, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I think once we have that, one of the things that we had been trying to work through is what sort of status we are looking at, because you had a previous approval. You had done a previous seeker, and sort of what was the status of construction under your previous approval, and that was that you had cleared trees. And that really is sort of where it progressed, and now you're changing the original plan and you're adding this additional area. And it's my recommendation for us not to be accused of improperly segmenting the seeker review for this, that you submit to us a full EAF for the entire project.
Yes.
So imagine that what was previously approved that you don't want to build is not part of this project, but that everything that you're proposing here is, right? So even the area that was previously approved is part of a new project that we're going to go through the seeker review of. That is my recommendation to the planning board. I think if you do anything less than that, you're going to expose yourself to a claim that you've done a little bit of a seeker review here and a little bit of a seeker review here to avoid doing an EIS.
Understood.
Okay.
I apologize if I'm kind of backtracking on August because I wasn't here, but my understanding is we did provide a long form. I have one that's part of my file that's dated back in August, so were copies of that made available to the board?
As far as I know, everything was submitted. There should be.
With the understanding that, yes, we would need to resubmit
Yeah,
a
as far-
long
I mean,
form
yeah.
and
Okay.
new type 1 action.
That may have been something that I missed in the file. If you could provide that in digital format to the planning board.
Sure.
I
I think maybe what would be helpful, since I know Warren's been going to the meetings on his own. I should be available to take over this, going forward, so maybe it would be helpful for the board to just have one comprehensive package rather than, some of these more piecemeal submissions.
And did that previous submission account for all the things we're talking about here?
Yes.
So it did have the BESS, it did have the EV charging station?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was all accounted for, yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so, yeah, if you could resubmit this, I think we could work toward getting that sent out to commence the seeker review. And then when we provide that to the board, we will have a part 2
Okay.
also. And that will indicate where we think there might be environmental impacts. If the board agrees with us, you can then prepare a part 3 addressing those.
Okay, yep, similar to the other applicant.
One of my biggest questions, it's not in the memo, but are you retaining trees around that summit area where you're putting the small?
We show, yeah, we have a proposed tree line up here, so we're not coming all the way up to the edge. You can see the edge of where it drops right off to 209.
Mm-hmm.
So we're keeping our trees close to the fence line. And then, yeah, there's gonna be some existing vegetation that's maintained there.
Okay.
Maybe what would be helpful is a plan with like an aerial on it that shows where that tree line is. Now it actually, more clearly show what's being preserved.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I don't know if you could sort of show relative, maybe cross-section view or something, isometric, to show where you're stopping the clearing versus the graded out slope. So are we seeing a bald top of the mountain or not is my concern.
Yeah, and I wasn't at those meetings, but my understanding is the concern is there's a residential street actually almost even elevation across 209. So we're really trying to screen their view of the new panels, which is why you guys are using those
Yeah,
lower profile.
very low panels, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you were standing on the road over here and looking this way, you would not be able to see this at all.
How
It would not be
would,
visible.
I mean, that neighborhood I'm sure is very important. My question is when I'm driving down the thruway
Mhm.
and I'm looking at this hill,
You won't see it.
I will not see a change in the tree line. The tree line will,
No, because there'll be trees over here, there'll be some trees here.
Mhm.
But basically what you're gonna see is just the power lines. These are gonna be so low
Mhm.
that they won't even be.
well, I get it, I won't see the panel, but when you take the trees
Oh, you're
off the
saying-
top
oh,
of
you're
the
saying-
mountain,
You're saying, well, I mean, obviously it's gonna be.
it's like a bald pate. It's like my head, yeah.
We won't go there.
Okay.
Well, I mean, obviously the trees are not gonna be there, so presumably if you were driving by before and you had seen those trees, right, then also.
Yeah, we don't really have a
I'm not
great,
sure,
Are you gonna, in other words, are you gonna see, is it gonna be like a flat top or is it gonna still look natural? Maybe it comes down a little bit, but there's still enough trees along the periphery where it still looks
Yeah.
like,
well, we can't really do any work on this sheer side slope, so there's not really gonna be any clearing here. I don't know how tall the trees are there. I haven't been all the way into the site, just kind of been on Woods Road. Unfortunately, like the space that we have here between the fence line and the road itself, we're gonna have a stormwater practice here, there's gonna be swale, so we can't preserve any of the trees there. But again, maybe around the edge here where we can.
do you need that for the panels? Because the panels aren't impervious, right?
The issue is, DEC's guidance for stormwater is, you need to establish disconnection between the panels by having the gap between each of the rows be larger than the panel width itself. Because these are a different type of panel, we're providing water quality treatment, for the panel area because they're just too tight. So we're not treating the runoff, we're treating the water quality volume with the understanding that, okay, underneath the panel is still gonna be vegetated. I think you had a comment on that, on, what the seed mix is, so we can provide some information on that. We've actually used lower panels before on a different site, so.
Okay.
There are special maintenance requirements just to make sure that
It-
the vegetation's not growing over the panels.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but that the vegetation's gonna survive in the shade, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have a shade tolerant seed mix that we'd be planting under there. But yeah, we are providing treatment. The road itself is porous, but we're providing treatment for the panels with a dry swell, with a linear practice. And that saves space too, so we're not trying to put any kind of, centralized practice like a bioretention area or a filter.
I mean, given the visibility sensitivity from the neighboring residents, it might be helpful to do a cross-section to that neighborhood, and then a cross-section to the thruway.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, and we'd have to fill some of those gaps in the topography with LiDAR, some publicly available data, but we could do that.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I mean, it doesn't need to be survey quality.
Sure.
Not at that scale, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we possibly initiate,
Well, you don't have a copy of the EAF?
I did not, no. I would think that we could get that going at the next meeting, and then I would have a suggested part 2, so you wouldn't have to wait. You could get going on that.
Okay, well, I mean, we can get going on the part 3 too, in the meantime. I mean,
Yeah.
with the-
You kind of know what
Sorry.
are some of the issues are gonna be.
Yep.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
Now, a different question, I guess, if we do need, assuming DEC takes the wetlands, are we going to need to wait for a wetland permit to get some kind of conditional approval from the board? Or could we have a approval theoretically conditioned on receiving a wetland permit? Because that, I mean, as we were hearing, previously, DEC's backed up, they have quite a backlog. That would at least give you guys would know you would have a conditional permit in hand with the understanding that, okay, we can't construct until we have a DEC permit, but.
yeah, I would think that would be fine, right, Warren?
It'll be conditioned on.
On the final permit.
Construction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we couldn't have the construction permit until they had the DEC permit, but I could see the process with the board going more quickly than, if we end up needing a permit with DEC. It could take a while.
I could see them taking months.
Yeah.
To get.
I wouldn't object to that if the board wanted to do that, rather than just keeping it around.
Warren, you're okay with that? Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Maybe we'll be in the same situation. We can send out our certified letter and not hear back.
Right.
It hasn't been the case in 2 projects I've had, but
Okay.
maybe we'll get lucky.
I mean,
No comment.
right, well, I mean, but
I already
as you
said too
pointed
much
out,
previously.
they're overwhelmed. I mean, obviously, they've taken on much more than they can handle, so it's a question of priority, right? So it's a question of
Are there any
triage.
Are there any other items in your letter that you think are like key items for seekers, so we're not going to hold up at the next meeting?
I mean, to me, this was about visual impact
Okay.
mostly.
Well, we can definitely take care of that. And then I understand there's outstanding SWIP comments. Has that been referred to an engineer or the town engineer? I think that was referenced in the August letter too, that we were waiting on SWIP comments, and I haven't seen any.
You still didn't get them? No? Yeah, we've been waiting for a very long time for those.
That's fine, maybe there's no comments.
There you go, hopefully, but, yeah.
I mean, what is the practice when that happens? Do you typically allow the applicant to check in with the engineer?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay, yeah, we'll reach out.
Assuming we have, I can check and see what it says.
Okay.
We kind of dropped like 3, 4, 6
When you say
projects in this lap,
cross section,
and each one gets successful and more difficult.
Conceptual drawing.
Yeah, this, I mean, we really have the 2 practices. We've got 2
it's
dry
really
swells,
just
so
like, okay,
it's not
this
overly
is the
complicated.
way,
We'd be happy to reach out to him if you had
We're
any
gonna have trees, we're gonna
clarifications.
clear out here, and, so in other words,
Yeah,
cross
Yeah,
view.
sure.
Yeah.
Those are gonna be public
Yeah,
charging
but not a
stations
conceptual.
in the
No,
orange?
not a conceptual.
That-
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, the orange is showing wetland impacts,
Yeah.
but yeah, here's a blown up view.
Woods Road connects to Sawkill, right by the overpass, right?
Right.
Would that have to go to county review?
Yeah, it's gonna need to go to county
Yeah,
review, just due to the
yeah.
proximity to 209.
No.
And with Denver Road coming out in that sharp curve,
I have
they
seen
may
them
have
do it. I
objection.
have seen,
Have you?
yeah,
Well,
it's
road's
almost
Yeah,
regular.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
know-
yeah,
I know it's
yeah,
there.
we're not changing, yeah.
The concern would be an increase in traffic to the
Increase in
chargers.
traffic.
If you
Yeah,
think
we-
it,
yeah,
if you think
it'll
it's
be very
going to
modest.
I will
I know.
tell you,
Very modest, yeah.
it's like regular.
Just to cover your
Oh,
bases.
you have it?
Okay, that's good to
Yeah, in
know.
another community. That's all for me, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
good.
great.
Okay,
Thanks for your time.
Okay,
thank you very much.
very good.
So the road issue is resolved too, I think.
Okay, 901 grant?
They're having a problem with the road, with pulling out onto the road.
How are you?
I'm very well. Good evening, I'm Brad Cleverly from MJS Engineering. This is a 901 grant project
Has not changed since the last time we were here a month ago. At that time, we had not heard back from the county. And also, we had submitted the response letter, hoping to get a response, a review of that response letter.
Nothing?
Not from county, I don't have anything from county.
Nothing from the county, okay. There was some questions about the parking study, right? Warren, on this one?
Well, the question of whether we go with a parking study to reduce the number of parking spots on 901 Grant. But if we know the parking calcs, what we're gonna need for 901 Grant based off of the town code, and the parking we need for 701 Grant. So if we know that parking, the total parking required by town code, and all the parking on both lots exceeds what we need. Okay, so let's say, between the two, you need 500 spaces, you currently have 600. So then it's just, it's a simple note, letter, whatever the case may be, of the owner of 701, which happens to be the owner of 901, basically granting himself to park cars from 901 and 701. The parking study only comes into play if 901, you don't have the parking for that building, and you have no other place to park. So we don't have to necessarily get into the parking study. Okay, because you're not asking for a reduction in parking. You're just asking to park the cars on the adjacent parcel. And assuming that between the two parcels, you have all the spaces you need, then it's just, like I said, the owner saying, yep, I grant cars from this one to park on this one.
We had submitted a letter to that effect on the 10th.
That accounts for everything on both parcels?
Yes, we needed about 25, something like that. We got 150 over here. And so by town code, you need 293. And so between this area, which is 148, and this area, which is 166, you got more than enough. And we have a letter from the owner of this property that in the event that they need more than 148, they can park over here. And we submitted that letter on the 10th of last month to the town.
Yeah, but I think the question, so the way I understand it is that there's two avenues to move forward. Number one, you can tell us the town requirements for both lots and the total amount of parking on both lots, or you can give us a study that shows we don't need the parking on this lot.
Well, the term study, since they have 25 workers, 25 cars, there's your 148 spaces, that's the end of the study.
That would be fine if it's fine with the board. That, you know what I'm saying?
I mean-
But we need one or the other, because the board cannot waive
Yes.
without the study.
Right.
And we cannot say that you can park on the other site
Without the
if
other
we,
uses over here.
without understanding what the town requirement for the uses are. So one or the other, doesn't matter, whichever one's easiest for you.
I can write that traffic study.
You could probably do both.
I probably could.
Right. And that, I think that was the big issue. There's some minor detail things that I think most of them have already been addressed. And the new thing here to this memo is we're recommending that this is a type 2 action as a reuse of an existing commercial use for other permitted commercial or non-residential uses. So you don't have to do seeker on it,
Okay.
but you get that last piece of information they could waive, or we don't even need to waive because you're going to show that there's ample parking.
Okay. Can we get approval subject to that? Just so I don't have to come back?
I do not have a prepared resolution.
Okay. I was hoping to get a prepared resolution for this evening, but,
No.
okay.
No. I mean, the board is fine with the parking study that we discussed. Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point, it's just a formality of having you come back next month we'll have a
Okay.
prepared resolution and we'll vote.
Essentially, we'll take the approach of the traffic study, rather than going through this, you need 25, you got 25 workers, don't quote me on that. You need 25 workers, you need 25 spaces, you got 148. There we go, it's gonna be
Okay.
about that long.
And the letter was submitted from the.
Yes, the letter's
Okay.
been submitted, they do have the permission to vote to park over here. But I will, just per the comment here, I will provide the letter of the traffic study, or the parking study, that there is adequate parking here on the north side.
Okay,
Come back in a month? Okay,
Yep.
great.
okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Don't think anybody's here from Creek Meadows, so I guess, do we have a motion to close?
I make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
We'll just move things over.
I need to probably